Welcome back to another episode of the Challenge Insiders here on Reality Pop. I have got my two co-hosts here with me again today, Chantel and Drew. Chantel, we'll start off with you. How are you doing, and what's your overall feel about this episode?
I mean, I'm feeling pretty good overall. I love the challenge. I love like what's going on. I do think that this twist changed things up in a way that has been interesting. And so yeah, I'm plussed about this episode, and I'm hoping that it'll start getting amping up even more since we're kind of at the halfway point. And I do think that like I heard that this is like the beginning, like this is like the real starting point of the season. So I'm happy to see if it's going to be going up in that upward trajectory. Like it's going to be pretty awesome in the second half of the season. So I'm here for it.
Drew, how about you? How's things been going, and how are you feeling about the, I guess, season now that we've had our second episode with this new configuration?
I'm doing actually pretty well. I feel a lot more calm than I have been in the past couple of weeks. I'm still figuring out how I feel about this. I think the next episode, with it being a Women's Day and Women's Elimination, I really hope that Emerald doesn't win. So that way they're on the table and it leaves a lot more possibilities of what could happen. I think that would be super interesting, but we're going to have to see what's going to happen because that's next week. And we're talking about this week's episode now.
100%. And before we fully get into this week's episode, I think I did one of the cardinal sins of podcasting when I was last week. I had to go and clear up our StreamYard in the back end to make sure that we don't have, because StreamYard doesn't just automatically remove recordings. And for some other reason, I think I might have removed our actual episode recap on the YouTube channel last week. So if you're looking for that and you're like, where's episode 10's recap? I put my hand up. I'm to blame. I think I might have accidentally removed it. But here's the good news. We do also have our podcast on all of the major platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all of that. So the recap is available on all of those different channels. It's just on the YouTube channel. I might have made a bit of a boo-boo here. Chantel, you look really confused.
I'm just trying to figure out how that would happen because like if you remove it from StreamYard and you just clear it off of StreamYard, that's only in this, as far as I know, in the StreamYard, log or whatever. But that is completely separate though from a stream that's on YouTube. So that would be, you'd find that in the live section of YouTube. So it just, you'd have to like literally click it and say like delete on YouTube.
I've done this so many times before, and I don't know what I did differently this time. But all I do know is when I went back to have a look and see where's our previous recap, it wasn't there. So, and I just thought to myself, I'm probably the only one that messed around with things in the back end. So it might have been me that stuffed something up. So apologies for anybody that is listening to this podcast and thought, hey, where's the previous podcast? Because I didn't get an opportunity to listen to the recap and your thoughts on that. Go and check out our Spotify, Google Podcast. The links and everything is on the description for this podcast as well. So guys, I guess, looking at it, we've gone 2 episodes here now with the green team, the emerald team winning, and yet no one has stolen someone in there. How surprised were we when, again here this week, Kyle wins, but Kyle ultimately chooses not to go into the team that everybody thinks is the top dog team at the moment?
I'm wondering if Kyle wanted to spread things out a little bit. Like he is working to a certain extent with CT. He's working with Devin, so maybe he's like, you know what, it's good if like we'll keep that team intact. Nobody's gonna be pissed at me or mad at me for taking their spot. And the only person he might do that to is Emmanuel. And so I don't think he wants Devin and Josh to be kind of annoyed with him. And so he's like, let me spread us out and put me on with CT. And I think that when I'm with CT, like we'll have an even better chance of winning here. And like, I'm not really working with Nelson. So like, let's put Nelson with his buddy Corey over on the Ruby team. And he'll be working now with somebody that he's working with in the game. So I think that that's why he did it.
Yeah, I think also people are going to try to steal into Emerald. And so if he's on Sapphire, he doesn't have to worry about somebody like maybe switching spots with him right off the bat. So that could be also a factor in it as well.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, it's kind of like Chantel said, who do you sort of, whose spot do you take there? You know, Devin, he's good mates with. Josh and Devin seems to be getting along pretty well. Josh, you know, hate him or love him, has got great connections in the game, and it seems like a lot of people do like him and want to play the game with him or will fight for him out there. So, you know, the only real option would have been Emmanuel. So I guess, and then also the fact that Kyle is good friends with CT. Now, CT didn't look too impressed by that move at the end there. He didn't look like he was too happy with Kyle coming over to his team.
I don't know if that was just like a soundbite. Like, I don't know, because like, why would he be that mad? And also, we'll learn in the next episode that like Nelson is just so pissed off, and it's just like, wait, you're on your team with your best friend here, and you guys think you're amazing. So what's the big deal here? I actually thought though that how it was going to work was that he was just going to be able to replace Ed. And so they would be a full team. Like, that's how I thought that it was going to go down. I didn't know he was still going to be replacing somebody on a team that only has 5 people. So I don't know. I don't know why TCT was that upset. I think that I kind of have a feeling that maybe the producers were like, oh, like, are you happy about that move? And he kind of fed into that question potentially.
I think when we look back to when they were coming up with the teams and CT could have went to the Ruby team or he could have went to Sapphire, he looked at Ed and Nelson and said, these are the Lamborghinis. These are the workhorses. And Kyle dismantled both workhorses from his team and took Ed out of the game. I mean, he had no choice at that point, but then he swapped places with Nelson. So now CT is the most physical person. I mean, I know Kyle just won, but when it comes down to physical abilities, they're going to look more towards CT in that area. And now CT is going to really think, I got to pick up the weight on this whole team here, because Kyle's always going to look for a shortcut, something not to do. He also just cost his team the mission this past week. So I think that's also playing a realm in his head. Like, Kyle's not going to listen to the rules. He's just going to do what he wants. Hopefully he can get by. That's that sort of thing. So I think that plays along in CT's head, going like, well, now I'm going to be having to like I'm going to have to be the workhorse in this team.
Yeah. And I do think it also comes down to, you know, when you look at Kyle, physically he's really good, but his endurance, I don't think, is up there with like an Ed or a Nelly T. I think that's kind of where the limitation is. And, you know, CT probably looked at it and he's like, okay, Nelly is reasonably physical as well, but he's got the endurance that comes with that. And like you said, Ed's a young guy, you know, maybe he got outsmarted here today in this elimination, but I do think that he is still a pretty decent challenger overall. And he definitely was his own worst enemy going down there and choosing the exact person that Logan told him not to choose for the exact challenge that he ended up choosing. So him and Logan had a conversation prior to the lair where Logan said to him, listen, if it's something that's going to be physical, rather go with Corey. If it's something that's going to go with speed, rather go with Kyle, because that's where their strengths and weaknesses are. Now, I don't know if he would have actually beaten Corey, because Corey's been in an elimination, I'm pretty sure, similar to that before. So he had an idea. But I mean, Kyle is undefeated. And I didn't even realize that until he went down there and CT sort of mentioned that he's beaten everyone. He's even beaten CT at pole wrestle. That's pretty impressive. Granted, you know, CT wasn't in the best physical shape in that recap when he was going up against Kyle, and he's in a different place now. But it is still pretty impressive when you're beating someone like CT and you are someone that has never lost a challenge such as that. How shocked were you guys when Kyle ended up choosing Kyle to go down there, and did you guys see it coming?
I had a feeling he was going to choose Kyle to go down, but I thought it was just so dumb. I was like as you've already said, he is undefeated, and I mean, it was a little bit. It was the 3-way pole wrestle thing with CT and JP, and so JP was trying to get out CT, and so he kind of lost it for CT and himself. But he still was able to grab that ring or whatever it was out of both of their hands, and so yes, it is still impressive. But he's done it so many times that he knows the strategy to get that done. So regardless of whether or not you think that you would be able to match up physically against either Nelson or Corey, you have to know that experience-wise, he's got it down. And I would have just taken a risk with maybe one of the other 2 guys instead. So I just thought it was like a dumb move that he was just trying to like maybe go out with some honor or something, but he definitely didn't go out with somebody that wanted to stay in the game.
And listen, Ed looked like a child next to Kyle when they were standing next to each other. He pretty much fitted him here, but below the shoulder. I mean, there's such a big height and weight difference between these two, Drew, and we know that makes a big difference in physical challenges such as this, right?
Oh yeah, I think Kyle's length worked to his advantage overall in this one. I think that Kyle does have some muscle, but his length really helped out because there was points where I think Ed had the right strategy. He was trying to pull it away, but when he didn't have enough wingspan to pull it because Kyle was just able to just hold it around him, like the scene in Ghost where they're doing the pottery. I mean, Ed's trying to pull it, but he was just like behind him, like giving him support. I will say that I don't think Logan necessarily had Ed's best interest at mind because he was really pushing for him to pick Nelson to go into the elimination against. And Nelson has an impeccable elimination record, one in a hall brawl in Total Madness, not hall brawl, but a pole wrestle in Total Madness. I mean, I think he really wanted Ed to take a shot at Nelson. For some reason, Logan does not like Nelson at all, wants Nelson out. And I think Logan, knowing that he was safe from being picked, he really was trying to push like, hey, try to take a shot at Nelson, get him out for me, and go that route. But he wanted to go up against Kyle, which I had a feeling he was going to pick Kyle, but I just don't think Ed's head was in the elimination coming in because he was still like flabbergasted, confused. Who am I going to pick? I think he was friends with all the guys that were up there. And I think he couldn't wrap his head around who he wanted to go up against, what friend he wanted to go up against. And I think no matter who he picked, I think everybody else would have been ready to go because I think they all had it in their minds like he could pick anybody. So I think they were already raring to go against Ed, where Ed didn't know who he wanted to go up against while he was standing down there, which I think was a huge factor.
And I was going to say, like, when your heart's not fully in it either, because you genuinely like all of the people, that 2% of you that is like reluctant to go up against anyone is enough for someone just to get it on over you. And I think we saw a little bit of that. I think West probably played it up against Devin last season as well, but he didn't really want to go up against Devin. His heart wasn't fully in being out there. And, Devin is someone as well, like while we're touching on him, really impressed me this episode because, he ended up being one of the two people who actually finished the daily challenge. He talks about the fact that, I'm mainly brains, but I do have a little bit of brawn hidden in there somewhere. When you look at Devin, I think that he underplays his own physical ability quite a lot. And I think it works in his advantage when he's out there because most people look at Devin and they say he's not necessarily going to do well in the dailies if it's a physical type of challenge. I do think he gets underestimated and he uses it to his ability quite a lot because there weren't that many guys who actually successfully completed the daily. There was only a few people, like CT was the only person in his team that was able to finish the daily. You had Devin and Casey. Casey, hats off to her for being the only female to go out there and complete it. There was a few others that had a lot of heart and really tried to get it done, but she was the only one that was able to do that. And then the same thing for the Ruby team, who definitely shocked us, and we'll get into that. What do you guys think of Devin? How long is Devin still going to be able to fly under the radar here and play this game of, hey, I'm not that big of a competitor? Because he probably is a bigger threat, I think, going into the finale here than what we maybe have given him even credit for, even on this show.
I don't think anybody's ever going to be scared of Devin. I just don't think that he's intimidating at all. I love Devin. I'm a Devin fan. I think he's funny. I don't mind his antics. And I want him to get to the final. And it seems to me like if I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on and speculate here, with seeing him on I think it was the very first Aftermath, he was talking about like how it was a really good experience for him. And he was speaking from someone that I could see have at least run the final. He seemed to be like happy with how well his season went. And so I think that he is doing a good job of being invisible. Even when he does well, it doesn't seem, it's like a fluke. People are like, he can't do it again. Like, I'm not scared of Devin. He might be called down by some people because there's obviously not that many men left in the game. And so he would be someone that a lot of people would feel decently comfortable calling down. But if he's on the winning team, they can't really do that. So I think that he's going to stay hidden. I don't think that people are scared of him, even if he wins.
As long as Emerald keeps winning, he has nothing to worry about. I think he is one of the top 2 guys, if it comes down to it, will be called out just for the sole fact that, like Chantel said, he's not a physical threat. So, I mean, if anything, I think Josh is going to be the number one. If Emerald has lost, he's going to be the number one called down. And then I think Devin would be the next person in line to be called down. I don't think anybody's going to pick Kyle after this showing in a pole wrestle. Nobody's going to call really down CT at this point. So
maybe
if it's going to come
Emmanuel
down
still.
to it, what?
Maybe Emmanuel still. Just 'cause
Yeah,
he's
maybe.
rookie.
I mean, if anybody really wants to take a shot, then by all means go ahead. But I just think physically, if they're looking at somebody like in a physical elimination, if one of the rookies are voted in and they get to choose whoever they want, and Josh is already gone, I think if it's something physical, something like this or Rage Cage, I think they would try to take a shot at Devin.
Yeah,
I would think.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Well, I'm going to go and share here the draft picks. And again, I'm going to be losing someone here this week. So it puts both myself and Chantel
right now
in the pitiful position of 4 players each. And then we've got Drew absolutely running away with this at this point.
But, like, he has the misfit team. Like, he basically has the extended Ruby team. Like, that's what it feels like to me. He doesn't have. I don't know. I love you, Drew. I'm just like fucking you.
I mean, every single week, I think we talk about how my team's going to go on a run of losing players, but that just hasn't happened yet. We're going into episode 12. I just see there's a huge peak in the middle, and I think the Drew name is there. So, oh my gosh, there's so many people.
Well, okay. Next episode, like, you'd have to assume that Bettina, like, who's Bettina? She hasn't been showed on the show, so she has to go soon, I would say. They're not really developing a real storyline for her. I wouldn't be surprised if it is her against Big T that are going up against each other next episode. And Big T has a little bit more experience than Bettina does. So I could see, either of them I could see winning just because it would be a little bit of a fluke for both of them. So yeah, I think you're losing one of those women. I don't think that Ashley or Nani are going to be losing, and I don't think Casey or Tori are going to be going down. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's not dwell too much into the future. Let's talk about the present. Talking about this episode.
Yeah, it's like I said, Stranger Things has happened before, and it's been an interesting season for me and Chantel. It's definitely been tough, but the reason I brought this up is because we were talking about, you know, who the 2 guys are that are on the table after this week that are probably at the biggest risk of going down. And there was a lot of mention about Devin potentially being one of the top 2 there. I do still think in the picking order, as boring as it has been to watch this season, and it has been really boring, I do think that Logan and Emmanuel would be the 2 most likely people to go down if the agency were to win, because they would just vote in one of the 2 rookies. And, you know, the fact that Logan's been injured for a while now, they know there's blood in the water. They're probably going to take a stab at Logan rather sooner than later. And we did have a question here from Sam a little bit earlier that I do want to bring up as well. He says, and welcome back to the live stream here, Sam. Who wins a pole wrestle between Ed versus Logan? And what do you guys think would have happened if Ed and Logan were the 2 people that went down there to challenge in this episode? We now learn that the injury that he has, it seems like it's a hamstring injury or something like that, but he ended up doing pretty well in the actual daily challenge. He was not bad out there. What do you guys think, you know, would have happened if those 2 guys actually ended up down there?
I don't know if it's just because I think he's so cute, but I think Logan would take the win, even though he is only at 85%, leg functionability or whatever. I just think that he has a little bit more fight in him. He wants to be, understands the game of it all, like the competitiveness of it all. Ed's there for a good time. He's on a cool show. He's there for have fun. Like, he's gonna keep it spreading the game. Like, he's just not a big competitor right now, like this season. So I think that Logan would want it more. And I think that Logan has had more experience in these type of challenges. Like, if he's on Survivor, he's probably had to do just interesting things that maybe they had some sort of like combat, 1-by-1 going against somebody kind of battling in Survivor. It's possible. So I just feel like Logan would have the upper hand just from playing other competitive reality games, and he wants it more, I think, than Ed does.
Sam's helping out here in the bottom, saying that Logan does have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. So in a pole wrestle, if you've got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, RIP to Ed, to the boy we used to know. He'll be gone, to be honest. CT at the end there basically also, and I think everybody, not just CT, all the veterans went in pretty hard on Ed here, saying that, he was playing with his heart too much. He wasn't really, his head wasn't in the game. He was choosing options that none of the options looked like it was a good option for him. But CT did have some kinder words for Ed towards the, I don't CT, TJ had some kinder words for Ed towards the end here, saying that he hopes to see him again and that he really enjoyed having him on the show. I think we've spoken about Ed as a character this season as well. I personally would love to see him come back. Now, I don't know at the expense of who that's going to be in the next season, but I definitely can see a world where we see Ed out there again in back-to-back seasons. I thought he brought enough this season, just from an entertainment value, that I would want to see him play the game again. But I hope that he comes back having learned some lessons from this season and that he's not so much a deer in headlight like he was this season at some stages of the game.
For me, I think the Ed of it all, I've had my fill. Like, I've had enough of Ed, I would say, unless he changes things up, unless he does a little bit of homework, sees how the game is played a little bit. Like, I need to see the competitive side of him, the side that wants to win this money and get to the end and do whatever it takes to get there. So I thought he was great this first showing. I thought he was super fun. I really enjoyed him. But if he's just going to do that again for another season, I don't know. I might want to take a risk on somebody that actually wants to figure out how to play the game and win. So
it's very cold, Chantel. His mom needs a second boat. Come on, that's very, very harsh of you. How awesome was that family video with like his mom being out on a yacht or something, out on a boat, out on the water? I've never seen a video like that before. And he's like, my mom needs the money and she's made some tough decisions. I'm like, looks like it's going pretty well. She's out there on the water somewhere, having a pretty good time. It's not poor people who get to go out on boats and things like that.
Yeah, definitely not. I like Ed. I think he brought some fun to the show. I think it's different than, it's been so serious. The show has been so serious the past couple of seasons. So I did like his lightheartedness. I think we got a little too lightheartedness, if I do say so myself. We didn't need that big old segment of Tori and Emmanuel making pizza in the bed or whatever they were doing in there. But I will agree with Chantel that I like him being physical. I like that he's having fun. I would like to see some form of grit. I like to see some form of gameplay that he brings in, some strategy. I think he's going to be a very big social player. And I think that's what he's going to use to his advantage if he is going to show up more and more seasons. But I would like to see some type of like grit or some strategy, some cutthroatness when it comes down to it, that he can make the hard decisions to get him further into the game, no matter what happens. But yeah, I think this was a good first season. I think with his personality, I didn't want to see him do too much craziness or go too hard in the paint this first season, because it was going to be a long shot. He was going to be sent in over and over again, even if he won this time around. So I think he took a shot. He did the best he could. And you know what? He went out. He's still being featured on the Aftermath a ton. So, I think that's that's a positive for him that he's being featured so many times on the Aftermath. So I think it's great.
I agree. And Chantel, I was surprised when you said, you kind of don't want to see this side of him again, because, when we were talking in the All-Stars and we were doing our recaps, you were very harsh and critical on the actual challenge show for being too serious, having too many athletes on there, just not having as much fun and joking. By the way, we didn't even get a party scene this episode. I don't know what happened to the party scene and if they even had a party this episode, but, things got a bit serious there.
You're mistaking though what I mean by what Ed's bringing to the table. Like, I like a little bit more of a well-rounded character. Like, I want people that strategize. I've always said on every show, like, give me the strategy, give me the strategy, give me the strategy. I want to see people strategizing. I like this new twist because it makes people strategize. And he wasn't doing any strategizing. So his other values, I didn't really care for. I don't like Jenny West necessarily because she didn't really strategize. Like, that's kind of the common denominator, is that I like people that are able to use their attributes. So Ed's super likable, awesome. Like, he's fun character. How does he use that to be able to get himself to the end and win? If Jenny West, she's amazing at, all these physical competitions, and she did a good job, obviously, her season, and she used that to get to the end. But I want to see people that can replicate that. They can do well consistently because they have that strategy portion of it that can use their physical attributes or their personality or whatever to get to the end and win. So he's just not well-rounded enough for me to want to only see him again as this party player. I want somebody with strategy.
That's fair. Thanks for clarifying that. And I think that with Ed, probably some of the things that sort of counted against him this season is that he came in late. Obviously, is one of the things. He didn't have the ability to bond with people right from the start. And then secondly, being a new player this season, I don't think he had that social capital where he could do too much. But in saying that, Logan is a new player as well. Logan is all strategy in my mind this season. He's got a little bit of personality as well.
You notice that I have a crush on him? It's because he's all strategy.
So he's all strategy. He's very good at what he does. And I mean, Logan, for me, he's an interesting one where I think that, I personally believe he's playing his injury up to be bigger than what it is in the game. And I think that he's pulling a Tyson Apostle for Survivor when Tyson played up his injury, and he's trying to see if he can survive 1 or 2 rounds here because he just got someone to take a bullet for him. Someone who hardly knows him went down there and did a Nelly T basically and sacrificed their game for someone that they didn't even know that well. So I'm really impressed by Logan this season, and I think he's someone that we should look out for. He has got another win potentially in him. I don't want to go too much in the spoiler territory, but I also want to say, Drew, you putting me into that video of yours with who's going to what team and who's got what colors and things like that kind of spoiled the elimination for me this week because I already knew who was going to leave just based on that. And I was like, I really thought that video on your channel was brilliant, but I was like, damn, now I know where people are going. But luckily, in the next one, we're already seeing some of those challenges happening. So I don't think we've been spoiled too far in advance, but I knew what was going to happen just based off that video.
The challenge's fault. You just broke down the
anyway, for sure.
Yeah,
the challenge.
They gave them the headbands, the armbands. We know where they're going. Like, I was surprised. I was shocked to see how many people are like flipping and flopping and going everywhere. I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this turns out. But yeah, I will say that even if you just watched the midseason trailer in passing, you kind of knew where this elimination was going towards, especially once Ed was like, I pick the Kyle. It's like you kind of knew where everything was going because I was like, oh, I saw Kyle. Yeah, I saw Kyle with a blue wristband. So yeah, I kind of knew where.
Mistake on the editor's part because like it's a pretty big mess up. Like I did also know. I was like, oh well, we saw him in the trailer, so like obviously Kyle is staying. So if he's going to call down Kyle's going to be there for longer. And that's thinking, I'm like, have I seen Nelly in the trailers? I'm like, I feel like I have. I'm like, have I seen Corey? I'm like, I feel like I have. And so it just it was pretty easy to suss that out, even without you doing the shot-by-shot breakdown. So don't worry, Drew. You didn't spoil it.
Now, Nelly here, he seems really annoyed by Kyle and calls him a snake again. I mean, that word has kind of lost meaning for me this season because Kyle's been called a snake so many times and was like, yeah, it's just Kyle, But why is he so annoyed here, Drew? He's going to his best bromance, mate there, and he's in the Ruby team with Corey. You'd think that he'd be really happy to be in a team there with his best friend, when he's doing the challenge and he's saying that, I don't like heights, I don't like being up so high, the water and all that. So I'm trying to think of happy thoughts. The editors even did him a favor to sort of illustrate what he was thinking about, which was Corey in the thought bubble. Why is he so annoyed by going here to Corey's team? Explain it to us.
I'll give it to Drew because, I'm obviously always annoyed with Nelson. So go, Drew.
So the Ruby team isn't doing so well. Let's just be real. They're not doing so well. And Nelson got his perfect team that he really wanted when he got to the station first. He was telling people where to go. He was like, Josh, you go to Emerald. Corey, you go to Ruby. So maybe Corey wanted to be on the same team as Nelson, but he was like, no, we got to divide and conquer. You go over to Ruby. I got Sapphire. I got CT. I got Ed. I have Amanda and Ashley. I think he had the team he wanted. I think they're so caught up in the Sapphire realm that they're like, we're going to win. We're going to win at some point. But then when he gets swapped with Kyle going to the Ruby side, he's like, man, I really just wanted to stay on my team. I wanted my team with me for the rest of the time. And I think he's just frustrated because he talked about how he wanted to divide up, split up the numbers. You'll be fine when you have numbers. I think he felt safe on the Sapphire team. Now you're on the Ruby team. You're not really possibly going to win at any point on the Ruby team. So now he's thinking there's no shot for me to win into the agency. I'm going to have to swap teams. Either nobody's going to swap with me. So now my best option is going into an elimination to swap with somebody else. And I'm sure Nelson doesn't want to go into an elimination at any point. So I think that's all flooding through his mind, even though his best friend is excited that Nelson is joining his team.
Okay, something that you said just like maybe think of something. So, do you think that Nelson feels as though they will be running the final in these teams and he wanted to be on the team with CT, who could do a lot of those other things like the kayaking, the eating the gross food, all that stuff, and he'd be able to maybe like bring his full team forward as well as having the experience of Ashley, the experience of Amanda. I'm sure we're going to lose Bettina, so that wouldn't be somebody that would be on that team for the finalists. Do you think that that's what he's thinking about? It's like actually running the final?
I think 100%. I think everybody's thinking that as well. And I think maybe that's more of the reason why Kyle went to the Sapphire team, because he's like, okay, if I'm going to stay on the Sapphire team, I'm cool with running with two champs by my side and Amanda, who I was partnered up with the whole time in this game. So, I mean, he has a lot of good connections on that team. So yeah, I think he is thinking that as well. I mean, Corey and Nelson have faced off against CT in a final before and both came up short. Nelson just short, like 2 minutes short. And he's looking at his team going, okay, Emmy is crying for her mom on top of the satellite, quote unquote satellite. And then maybe he is talking mad smack about Big T, and that's why Logan wants him and Corey out of the game and to be taken shot. Because I think he mentioned that when he was talking to Big T, that Corey and Nelson were talking smack behind her back about not wanting to run the final with her. And maybe that's another reason why Nelson is frustrated, because now he's on a team with Big T and he doesn't want to be running a final with her, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting because Ruby had, you mentioned they kind of have this, I guess, aura around them as being the layup team here, but they almost won this challenge today. They were very close to winning it. They looked pretty impressive. Like, granted, it was the guys who kind of pulled it through at the end, but Emmy is no slouch either. She's got a lot of heart, as well when it comes to doing these challenges. Yes, she'll cry, but she'll get on with it. She'll still get through the daily challenge if needed. So, I mean, it's not like they're completely a write-off, but I do think that there's also the whole thing between Kyle and Corey where I really think they just don't like each other on like almost a personal level. Kyle doesn't like Corey's leadership style. Corey's leadership style is very, I think, cringy to him, and he doesn't take things too serious. I don't think he respects Corey in that way, where I think that if CT told Kyle to do something, he would do it. Like, he would respect CT as a leader within that group more so than what he does Corey.
I have another question. Do you think that Kyle maybe lost that challenge on purpose because he wanted to leave the Ruby team and have the opportunity to go over to the Emerald Sapphire team? Because I was thinking that he didn't want to ever be on that Ruby team. And it could have been pretty easy for him to just jump properly and get the plug that he needed to get. So I'm wondering if he's just faking the fact that, like, oh God, I can't believe I did this. I lost this for you guys. And it was really because he wanted to go down there if that was what happened, and he would be able to choose his new team.
I think that if that was the case, Kyle is not the kind of person that would have been able to shut up about it, and he would have spoken to the camera and he would have told us this was his plan, because he would want all the credit for being this genius mastermind. So I don't think that's the case. I think he really tried to not get into the elimination. He had that chat with his partner, saw his baby, the photo of his baby beforehand, had that in his mind saying, I need to win this money. He stuffed up because he was scared or got in his own head and ended up down there having to fight for his life. I don't think it was planned. I do think he was quite desperate to also not go down there, because he had a plan. He had a proposal to Ed, which if I was Ed, I would have strongly considered it. I guess it is Kyle and he's got the reputation of being a snake, but having some deal that will last you for future games as well, isn't a bad deal if you're saying, hey, I won't come after you in this game or any other game in the future. Who else is giving him what kind of deals? That's a pretty sweet deal. If no one else is telling you that, then choose someone else. Even if you go home, at least you've got Kyle's supposed loyalty, or you can hold him ransom to his word to a certain degree in next season. And that gives you a storyline as well with the producers, where you can say, if I go back, I'm going to hold Kyle to it. And the producers would look at that and say, brilliant, something that we can do a recap to the previous season. If Kyle does betray him, there's a storyline there for Ed to come back. So if Ed was really thinking about future potential seasons, I think that could have been a very smart thing for him to do, to shake the hand, make it a really big thing on camera to say, you've got my back in future seasons now. So a real big opportunity missed by Ed here. But I also think Kyle was desperate not to go down. So I don't personally think that your theory sort of stands tall. I don't know, Drew, if you've got any other sort of takes on that.
The only thing I will say is that I agree with you, Chris, that he would have said something like, oh no, we lost it. I didn't know it was a leap of faith. He would have played it up, but also there was money on the line. There was $3,000 and Kyle would not throw anything if $3,000 were on the line. I think if Sapphire would have went out there and got 5 people or 5 plugs undone right off the bat, and he thought they were going to win, that would have been his best opportunity to throw. And hopefully the Sapphire wins. He would probably have told them, hey, throw me in. I'm going to pick Josh. I beat him in a elimination before in Total Madness. I feel like I can do it again. And that's my best opportunity to swap teams. I think him losing it and then Emerald winning was not the best move for him. He does not want to go up against any of these players. Maybe Logan because of the hamstring injury, but with a pole wrestle, you're more on the ground wrestling, you don't have to do anything with your legs like running or anything. So, I mean, that wouldn't help him at all. So, all in all, this was the best option for Kyle, but I think if anything, he would have wanted taken a shot at Josh. Like that would have been the best opportunity for him. And he would have definitely threw it if he thought Emerald had any shot of losing. So just the $3,000 and him not like bragging about it. I think that's where I feel like he wouldn't be moping in his bed, I think, as hard as he was if he was really not down about it.
He's a weasel. He's the actor. He's making it. I'm just kidding. He's trying to sell it.
Primetime here agrees with you in the live chat, Chantal. He says, Kyle, 1,000% through the challenge. He says, come on, Kyle is a liar. His word means nothing. Come on, Chris. And I hear you, Primetime. I hear you. But I'm thinking, if I was Ed, what would get me back on the show? Like, sign up the deal. It's a 50-50 in any case. Like, I still think that he made a mistake going after Kyle for this specific challenge. I think that it wasn't a good matchup. It's so much smaller. Your height, we spoke about it earlier in the podcast, being someone that's got that extra reach, the extra body weight. There is a reason, like, not everybody can be a Derek, that goes in there and beats guys twice his size. Like, Derek's got a very specific skill set that allows for him to be able to do that. And it's not easy to do. I think Ed made a mistake in that sense. And I think that he potentially, if there's a deal, there's a deal. Take it. It's a storyline that you can use to probably get back on the show. It's something that can transfer to the next season. But I don't think Ed was thinking in that line at all. Now, daily challenge here, guys. What did you think of the daily challenge? Because some of the daily challenges have been hit and miss this season. Were you guys high on it or not so? Chantal, you look like you weren't that high on it. You've got the double thumbs down. Tell us why you didn't like this daily challenge.
It was a miss. It was like all the women, there was nothing really, even though there was the $3,000 and all those protein bars on the line, it didn't seem to be enough to encourage the women, at least on the Emerald team or Sapphire team, to do well. So they just were all just jumping off and like, I hate heights, I'm jumping off. And so it didn't really, in my opinion, have any real stakes. Like nobody was really trying that hard. It was pretty predictable that, the Ruby team was going to think that they were going to win and then they weren't going to win. Like, it's just like how it was all edited together. It's like pretty obvious that it was going to be like, sorry guys, you didn't win. It's actually the Emerald team. And so I don't know. I just didn't find it good at all. It wasn't entertaining, really.
Is it because you watched Squid Game and you saw the glass challenge with people stepping on the glass and you're like, it's not that high stakes here? I don't know if you've
I
watched Squid
haven't
Game or
seen
not.
Squid Game yet
Okay,
because I'm just
no
doing
spoilers.
a social media bullying. Like, I'm not seeing it because everybody's telling me I have to see it. So I'm waiting until like it dies off, and then I'll watch it without being like told to watch it. So I don't know Squid Game yet.
No, fair enough. We won't go down that direction. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Drew, so what did you think of the daily challenge?
I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun daily challenge. It was kind of like a throwback. I mean, it wasn't that high stakes, but it was kind of like a wipeout challenge where people were just going around. We got some good wipeouts. People were falling into the water. I'm glad nobody got hurt. The only thing that frustrated me was Ruby team was at a clear disadvantage with only 5 members. There were 6 plugs for everyone. All the teams had 6 players except for Ruby. I know it's slim chances that not everybody was going to reach the plugs to unplug them, but what would have happened if that happened? If Sapphire or Emerald got 6, Ruby got all 5, it's clear disadvantage. Was somebody able to go twice?
Probably.
Would the last
That's
player?
my guess.
But the thing is, it's a leap of faith. So they would have had to have dropped the rig, let Corey get back on, bring it back up, have him go around again. To me, it made no sense. I think they were just praying that there was nobody going to actually fall off or get all 6 of them. So they're just like, whatever, we'll just keep going with it and let it happen and pray that it doesn't come to this sudden death or tie or whatever.
Maybe they showed it out of order. Maybe the Ruby team went first. Because like sometimes they do that. They put like how they edit it is not the order that they do it in the show. So maybe the Ruby team went first, and then but when they actually put it together for the episode, they didn't have them go first. Maybe.
What are you telling me that CT lied to us as an audience, saying that it's so much pressure to be the first team to be out there and do this challenge? Would CT do that to us, the loyal fans?
Yeah, I think if he was prompted to.
I'll look at CT differently next time when he's in the confessionals. But no, I do agree. I mean, I didn't actually pick that up, Drew, to be honest, the first time. So good pickup there. You would hope that they would have had a plan for someone to go twice or something like that. But, we didn't even get close to that. I personally, I liked it. I like, listen, it's not the daily of the season, but it was a lot of fun seeing people wipe out. I always enjoy seeing people wipe out. When Big T took that massive tumble and did like 3.
No.
She did like 3 somersaults. She did like 3 somersaults going down. And I think it was like Ashley or Amanda that said, it was Tori. She said, let's rewind that. And it was exactly at the point where I wanted to rewind to have a look at it as well. So I was like, Tori doing the good work there for people who are watching it live and can't rewind it. And they're showing us how she tumbled. I thought that was amazing TV. It's always fun to watch. And it really just, what I like about it is it does challenge people in a different way. Like I do get bored of seeing people do this carnival tricks of being in a car where they're doing the donuts, like Drew said before, which isn't a lot of fun, or everything's just physical, or it's just mental. Like you want to see different. Like this one took a little bit of dexterity and agility to be able to jump through onto each one of those platforms. So I enjoyed it in that sense. There was some fun, and the added bonus of seeing the guys use the water cannon to try and shoot people down. I don't know how much it really did at that distance, but it would have been annoying as hell being up there. And I like the trash talking that were happening between different people, like Amanda really laying into Kyle. She's so good at doing that with some of these guys. And for me, it was fun. Like I enjoyed it. It's always fun seeing TJ having a great time as well when people completely total.
I definitely like the spraying the water hose at them element, because like how they were cackling down there, and it's like ha ha ha, like that was a fun part of it for me. I don't like watching people wipe out. Like it just looks so painful, and I'm like so worried about Big T that she's gonna hurt herself, and I'm just like, I was just too on edge. And like even when they're leaping on and they're just like falling on their stomach, and I'm like, ow, it just seems like it's just so painful. So I didn't like. I think that's probably why I didn't enjoy it that much, is because it just looked, all aspects of it looks just so painful.
Casey landed on her face. Casey landed straight on her face. Like Casey had the worst wipeout. Like I mean, Big T did 3 somersaults, but still ended up with her feet hitting the water first. So she would have gone a perfect 10 if this was the Olympics. But like it looked really bad. Like it could have been horrible. She could have landed flat on her face as well, or on her stomach. But yeah, it's painful. I get why as long as nobody gets injured, then I'm enjoying it. Like it's good fun. There used to be this TV show called Wipeout that was back on TV back in the day. I don't know if any of you guys have watched it, but Wipeout was pretty much about this. It was people wiping out on these crazy, ridiculous challenges. So the only thing that they should have added here, Drew, is like in Wipeout, they used to have that bar that would sort of spin around as people were jumping from platform to platform. They just needed that there, and that would have been brilliant. It would have been 10 out of 10 for me for the daily.
I will say that I cringed when Big T fell into the water and how she fell, because it reminded me of Leroy in, I think, Car Crash and Vendettas, which is like the worst wipeout out of challenge history, in my opinion. Well, one thing I will say, I think I forgot it now. Yeah, I can't remember it now. So we'll just no. I remember in Aftermath, I liked hearing Corey's talk about his strategy with his team on how he was able to effectively get around. He said that after watching the Sapphire team, which that's what made me thought of them going second. After watching the Sapphire team, he was like, the way that it was all slippery, we decided to, when we jumped, we would use our inner thigh on our legs to catch the pillar. So that way, when we kept on jumping, we would securely get on all the pillars. And that's why all the guys were able to get all of their plugs, while Kyle sabotaged his own team, either by purpose or on accident. But that's why all of them were able to get their plugs while everybody else were kind of just like flopping off, even though it was the same wetness for everybody. So I liked hearing like the strategy, even though it was like a fun, giggly daily. I liked hearing that there was some strategy having on the sideline going, okay, they're on 2 feet. They're trying to run on like stairs. That's not going to help us out at all. We need to be having a different thought process. So I really enjoyed hearing the aftermath and hearing actually Corey coming in as like a leader and a coach saying, this is what we should do. Let's do it. So I thought it was interesting.
So here's the real important question, Drew. Like, who's going to be leading those boot camps now that Nelly and Corey are both in the same team? Would it be still Corey's boot camp, or would it be back to the Nelly T boot camp coming into the next episode to get them ready for the next daily challenge?
They're going to tag team it. They're going to like clap in, and then somebody else is going to do something. Maybe Nelly will do the ropes and Corey will do the telling everybody to go around the yard carrying the weight bar.
That's the real reason Kyle got out of there. He's like, there's way too much working out in this team. I want to go to a team that don't take things this seriously, and I'm going to go to another team. But overall, like I felt like it was a really underwhelming performance here by the blue team, the Sapphire team, who a lot of people want to be in that team. A lot of people feel like they haven't achieved yet what they can out there. But it was an underwhelming performance by people like Nelly and Ed, who you'd thought would go out there and do pretty well. Ashley, I like Ashley. Let me just start off by that first. But we're hard on other people. Like, I like her as a champion. Like, you guys know, I'm all about getting the champions to come back and play. Like, yes, do I think her personality sometimes can be a little bit out there? Yeah, 100%. But one of the things I wanted to bring out was that she quit, and how do we feel about her just outright quitting in the challenge? That seems to be something where people really, in general, they're annoyed by it. And how much is she being saved here, being a vet, where people are just, she's going to be safe regardless. She's a vet. This wasn't a women's elimination. Do we feel like there's a little bit of unfairness happening here? Because if that was someone else that quitted in that sort of, like in other seasons when we see a quit, people are pretty hard on that, and I felt like she kind of got away with it here and just stepped off and didn't even try, which is pretty bad. If I was a man and I was in that team, I would have been like, Ashley, you just put me in danger and you didn't even try. So
I think they need to bring back the whole, like, if you suck at the daily, you're going directly in. And I think that would prevent people from doing that. I know that it was a men's elimination this time around, so like the women didn't really have that much incentive, really. But fix that. I'm sure there's a way that we can, change the mechanics of the game so that, like, if you quit, there's a consequence. Like, maybe it's going to be a girls' elimination now. Like, whoever falls first, it is dependent on who the elimination is going to be. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't really love it. I didn't expect her to even give it a try, especially since her butt wasn't going to be on the line. So yeah, I was a little bit annoyed by it. I don't know how you can fix it though. but there should be
Yeah,
a
because
way.
you got Big T like wiping out crazy, and people are like constantly talking down on her ability to do well, and they don't want to be teamed with her. I felt like it's just so unfair because Big T's got the heart. Maybe she doesn't always have the execution and certain styles, but also it is a little bit harsh. I feel like on Big T, she's not terrible, but she's got this reputation out there on the challenges being someone that people don't want to be partnered with, and then you've got a champion just stepping off.
Yeah, I think that's maybe part of Big T's story is she feels she's always being underrated, discredited, and so she has to or feels the need to continuously give her all, even if it's going to be a triple backflip wipeout into the water. I also think that their strategy, the Sapphire strategy going into this daily was off because they had the 3 guys front load it and then the 3 women on the back end, and 2 of the 3 guys wiped out. So you have 2 very muscled, very good in shape men just instantly fall off. CT almost fell off as well. And Ashley is going 4th on this team thinking, I don't want to wipe out. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to ruin my chances. And we're probably not going to win this anyways. So I'm just going to just fall off on purpose and have a controlled fall instead of like possibly hurting myself actually trying. I think if they maybe would have done man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, and after CT went, then Ashley goes and maybe gives it her all, maybe. Or maybe she thinks I'm second. It's not a guy's day. It's not a woman's day. It's a guy's day. I could just fall off and we have 4 other people behind me that could do it. I mean, it's depends on her, what she's actually thinking in that moment. But in that moment, I just think that she's like, 2 of the 3 guys fell. I don't see Bettina doing this. I don't see maybe Amanda could do this. I have faith in my friend, but I don't think 2 people are going to be enough out of us going first. And then the 2 other teams of 6 or 11 other players that are going to be going got to see what our mistakes were. They're probably going to surpass us anyway. So what's the point? Which is not the name of the game, but it's her decision.
Yeah. Just really want to briefly touch on this before we move on from the daily challenge. We haven't mentioned his name, which is a good thing when we haven't had to talk about him too much throughout the episode. But Josh, was so annoying in his celebrations and going on about the fact that, they're unstoppable and all this. And it's like, Josh, you didn't contribute to this win whatsoever. I don't want to hear from you. Give me Devin or give me Casey to talk about how great this win was. Don't give me someone who contributed 0% towards the win for the day. And they do end up winning here their second one in a row, which means that they're safe. They do have a bit of a target now on them as a team. Do we think that this team is as good as they think that they are? And do we think that they still are the team to beat here moving forward in this game? They do seem to have a proven track record. They've got good chemistry. All of them like working together. Can the other 2 teams get it right? And in what scenario do we think that Emerald potentially will be in danger here? Would it be someone? I feel like the show is sort of hinting that someone's going to infiltrate, and that's going to cause the dynamic to change because there's going to be someone that will break it up in that way. Do we think that's going to be the ultimate downfall moving forward in the game here?
I think the reason why that team does so well is because they have Casey on that team. I think that she has it's the strongest woman on that's left in the game right now. And I think whatever
one of the strongest players, even if you don't say woman, one of the
if you just look at it player, I think that whatever 100%. Team that Casey would be going on to, I think that would become the strongest team. So I think that that's why they're doing so well. Because she's the only woman that was able to get through that particular challenge. So if she was on that team, she would be that extra woman that would have been able to make that team be the winning team, and any of the other 2 teams that went. Well, maybe not with CT, but they would still would have had 2. So yeah. I think that she is what is allowing them to win because she going up against any of the other women always is going to come out on top, which means that they just have to have the one man do really well in their team. They don't have to have 2. So I think it's because of Casey.
If she doesn't win this season, would she be one of the unluckiest female athletes or challengers out there to never win a show within her first 4 seasons? Because I feel like she's consistently been up there over the last couple of seasons now where things have gone against her. Like last season, she was quite unlucky that she got Fessy as a partner, which ended up working against her towards the end and also obviously injuring herself. But Fessy probably contributed towards that. Like my respect for Casey, like, yes, she's not entertaining, but as a competitor, just continues to increase, because I do agree with you, Chantal. I think, and the reason you're right, she is a difference because she's a female in that team, and you've got a combination of male and female in each team, and there's a limited amount of them. But I think even if you took that out of the equation, I think she's just one of the best competitors out there this season, regardless. Like, I feel like she's up there with some of the better men, even, like, in sense, like, she's really, really good. Like, I feel like if she didn't win this, it would be a little bit of a, for me, I would feel sad for her not, after another strong showing this season, how she's playing the game physically, I should say, because again, like I said, she doesn't bring a lot of other things to the table for me. I would feel sad for her if she didn't get a win this season. I feel like she really deserves it based on her performances. Am I the only one?
I mean, I don't feel bad for her because she's not great at math. She's not great at puzzles. She's not great at eating. So she's like, yes, she's good at the physical stuff, but she's not as well-rounded as some of the other female winners have been. And so if she worked on those other things, like in the off season that we just don't know about, then like, and then she still loses, like, oh, that sucks. Like, you really tried to improve yourself. But I don't know if she's learned from her past, final appearances on what to do to make it happen for her when she gets there again. I do think she'll get there again, but I could still see other people winning against her in the final just because she doesn't have those other two elements that are really useful in the final. So yes, I think she can get there every time, but I don't know if she can win every time just because she's not great at those other things.
Yeah. And I think what you both were saying is completely correct, that Casey is doing well physically. And I think playing into next week's mission, which is the 500th episode, which looks like to be capture the flag or bags of money or diamond heist or whatever they're going to call it. I think that it's going to play well for the Emerald team on the women's side, especially because they have Tori, because they have Casey. And when they're going up against the other women, I think I remember seeing in the midseason trailer, you had Casey, who had the bags in her hand, and she was putting on a juke move against Bettina, who is just trying to corral, who's just going to try to corral Casey as long as she can. But you think that's going to play well. And then on the men's side, they're not going to be that strong. I feel maybe their social standings would help. Like if, say, Devin is running after Kyle, or Kyle is having to tackle Devin, maybe he would just let him go, kind of let Emerald have the win. Or Emmanuel does well. I mean, I think he could do really good. He's really quick. I think he could really do some damage. It won't help Ruby's team, but I think this was a technicality. I will say technicality, even though Kyle broke the rules. I mean, they're not invincible, but I think they are having these missions where it does play into some of their players' hands. And I think that with anything that's going to be physical, Casey is going to be able to take it, at least on the women's side. But yeah, I think there is some hinting that there could be some infiltration, especially if Emerald wins for another time. It's going to be hard to think that whoever gets thrown in and wins is not going to just automatically jump ship. Maybe some people would want to go onto the Sapphire team, but I think mainly if it's 3 wins, anybody's going to want to go now to the Emerald team.
Now, let's say, for instance, they do want to infiltrate that Emerald team. Who do we think are the 2 players, one man, one female here, that Emerald team can lose and not lose that mojo that they've got going on at the moment as a team? So for me, I think you guys bring up great points here with Casey being really physical. Maybe she doesn't have the math side of it or some of the puzzle sides as well. I think she's done okay in puzzles, but I think math is probably one of the things that she struggled with because it is actually a different type of skill set between the two. For me personally, when I look at that, I think Devin is extremely important to that team as a male because of his experience, because of his ability to do puzzles, math, all of that kind of stuff. Like you said, he does have a little bit of brawn hidden very deep in there somewhere that people probably don't see. So I feel like he's just got the right balance that for the men, he's probably the one person they do not want to lose. I feel like in that team to continue to have that mojo. If you had to lose one of the men, Josh would probably be the person that I personally like from a morale point of view. I think it'll probably be bad for Casey and him, who are really good friends, and maybe like it sounded like Tori and him are pretty good friends. But I think from a winning the final, like CT said, it's not about being nice, it's not about all that kind of stuff, it's about who can bring the finale for you. I think that Josh is the one person they could probably lose, and it will actually not hinder them. It does depend who goes into that team, but there's some pretty good competitors out there that can move into his spot that I think almost all of the other men could be an upgrade to Josh in that team if they lost him. For the females on the other side, it is a tougher one. Like Casey is the person that you don't want to lose there. I feel like she, like Chantal said, probably helps and gives them the edge at this point. So you're going to have to look at Tori and Nani in that position. And it's a bit of a toss-up here. I think if you look at history of who's been there and done that and who's probably got the best ability to physically be up there, I'm sort of wondering, like Tori is not in her prime anymore, but I almost still want to give Tori a bit of an edge over Nani as a person that I'd rather keep in the team and then maybe lose Nani, which I know wouldn't be great for Casey. So my verdict, if I had to choose here at this point, is I would probably say Josh and Nani are the two people that would cause the least damage in that team if they were to lose them, and for them to still go on and do really well if they were to run a finale tomorrow. What do you guys think?
I agree with that. I do think that even though I'm not the biggest fan of Tori, I do think that she is a little bit more competitive than Nani is. I think she has a little bit more of like a don't give up kind of attitude. From previous seasons, it seems as though Nani needs the encouragement and help of her partners and her team to make her do well. But we've seen Tori be kind of the leader of her duos and like them being able to do well. So even just like when she was paired up with Ed, they won the first time they were together. And I think that was partially her kind of guiding the way with like a good, a good partner. So I think that Tori can hold her own a little bit better than Nani. Nani seems to need encouragement from other people. And so, yeah, I give Tori a little edge there. And Josh, I think he'd be losing the final for that team, to be fair. I think he would gas out on like he doesn't know what it's like to be in that actual final. I don't see him being able to run it. I'm sorry, Josh. I don't see him being able to eat stuff. I don't remember how he is at puzzles or at math stuff, but I just don't see him being able to do all like the really shitty stuff that they make them do sometimes, like standing up all night. I don't even know. Like, I can feel him complaining and not being able to handle that, being super tired. I don't know. I don't see him being able to be helpful at the finale. So let's just get him out of here.
Just to not be that podcast that just bags on Josh the whole time, because I know there's enough of them out there. Is I will say his math and his puzzle skills is decent. Like he's not bad at that. He's gotten better at doing the endurance stuff. But the real problem here, I think, because he, if I remember correctly, there was like that the mini finale challenge that did last season, and he got second place with whoever he was paired up on that specific season, if I remember correctly. He did pretty well there, but that was over a space of 1 day. The finale is 2 days. It's a different beast, different type of mentality that goes into it. And I don't know, I've never seen him eat. I can't remember how he does in eating gross stuff, but that's, if I had to go and do a finale, by the way, that's where I would physically, I'll go and do whatever, but the eating stuff, I'd put my hand up. That's probably why I would never do the challenge, because I couldn't eat what these guys eat personally. That's just me, you know. I'm a bit of a...
I think I could eat. I think I would much rather do eating than anything over heights. Honestly, I drink this disgusting celery drink, powdered drink every single morning, and I gagged for the first month, and then I was just like, you know what, I can get used to anything, and I do it every single morning. I agree with both of you guys talking about I look at the teams and I look at who has the characteristics, and I look at Devin and I look at Josh, and they have brains. And what you really need on the Emerald team is the workhorse that CT wants. You want the guy that will never give up. You would want the guy that could eat. I think Nelson would be the best person, the missing piece, because I think Emmanuel will just do whatever. He's really good at a lot of stuff. He will be that workhorse. You tell him we need to smash 50 rocks, he'll go and do it. He won't question it. He won't try to take over. With Nani, not saying anything bad about Nani, I think she works better one-on-one, but we have to think of what happened last season in the finals. She couldn't even make it up that last hill for Leroy to get second place. Like, she just put it on cruise control. She was just like, I'm putting it on autopilot. I can't physically move any quicker. I think Casey gives you that brawn. I think Tori is that workhorse on the women's side that you need, that she won't try to take over. She knows what Devin is capable of. And I almost think that you bring in another workhorse on the women's side and you would have a stacked team. Like, you could do whatever you want on that team. Heck, bring in Ashley, bring in Amanda. I just think I think Josh would do much better on the Ruby side than, say, because they need somebody to do puzzles. They need somebody to do that math. They don't have really that brain player. They have the brawn. They have brawn leaking out their ear holes. They have so much muscles. They just don't have somebody that could do the math and everything else. So that's I'm not going to diss Josh at this moment, but I will say that he's better at puzzles, and they already have the puzzle guy in Devin, I would say.
You've got to wonder, you kind of bring up a good point with Ruby having a lot of brawns there. Like, how do they go into this next challenge next week and not do well, especially on the guys' side? Like, Corey and Nelson are both pretty physical. They probably would do well in the physical stuff. Logan might struggle because he's got that injury that he's carrying. They've got Emmy. So, I mean, I think the only female that's going to give Emmy trouble is Casey at this point, like when it comes to just the physical side of things. And then Big T probably isn't the most. Like, she comes across as being more of a girl's girl, but she's got a lot of heart. Like, you can't take that away from her as well. So she might put up a bit of a fight. So you almost have to wonder where things are going to go and how it's going to work. And it's going to be interesting with the 3-team configuration, like who's going up against who and at what time, because, again, Kyle is pretty physical. Like, again, I think he proved that this week with doing the pole wrestle and doing extremely well there. People do underestimate Kyle. CT is really physical. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm actually excited just thinking about that matchup going into next week. And it's going to come down to who's going to be the next female that's going to be in trouble. So who do we think going into next week? And I'll bring up for us again our draft picks here so we can have a look at our draft picks. Who do we think female-wise is going to be the biggest risk here? I think we sort of touched on it early on. Chantel, you were kind of hot, and I'm going to go down that same direction. I do think that it's going to continue to be, and this is sort of answering prime time as well at the same time here. He's asked, why do we think Corey was the house vote again, when usually if someone is put in once, they just get put in once after each other. They keep putting the same person in. And I do think that the dynamic has changed now that we've got these teams where if the vets can look after each other, they will. There is an unspoken rule for the vets to continue to look after each other as long as they can. So they've gone back to default of trying to look out for each other here. And I think that the two females, if they don't end up in a winning team that is at risk, is Emmy and Bettina. They'll be the two that probably will get put in by the agency. And there's a good chance that I don't know if Emmy would pull Big T in because they're in the same team. So I think if Emmy is the house vote, she puts in Bettina against her. If Bettina is the house vote, I actually think she goes for Big T just because of the fact that Big T is someone that she thinks she can beat and potentially is underestimated quite a bit. And we did get a lot of personal content from Big T here this episode as well. We got a bit of personal content from a few different people, but you've got to wonder why we saw that from Big T in an episode where she wasn't really going to be the person that was going to go down there as well.
So I think the reason why Corey wasn't the house vote is because Ed fell on his sword for Logan. They're like, oh, okay, perfect. Okay, you want to go in? Yeah, okay, we'll give that to you. So I think that if maybe he hadn't have already decided that, like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, I'm a rookie. Like, I'm going to be going in. Like, he didn't do any strategizing. He could have easily have, maybe pushed it in another direction if he did some work and being like, hey, like, let's just throw down Corey again. Like, whatever. He could have said some things. And so I think that it was an easy out. Ed wasn't, as we've talked about already, not strategizing at all. He was falling on the sword, and it was making it an easy vote for everybody. So I think that that's why Corey wasn't necessarily up in that moment, just because Ed made it easy for them to just throw him in.
I believe that is somewhat the case. I also think that there was talks that if Corey was the house vote, he would have went for Logan, who was injured. And I think that scared the Emerald team, because if they throw in Corey, he's going to pick Logan. They're thinking he's going to win it easily, and then they're going to infiltrate, or he's going to infiltrate the Emerald team, because even though he's Ruby for life right now, if he gets the opportunity, he's going to swap teams, and he's not going to swap with Nelson, so he would swap with somebody from the Emerald team, I believe. So I think that's what they're also thinking is Casey and everybody was just like, keep the Emerald Six alive. We have to keep it alive. What's going to keep us together? And also on that, we heard Nelson give a confessional right before heading into the deliberation where he was like, oh, well, the vets are going to just look after each other from here on out. So, I mean, if we could throw in rookies, we're going to throw in rookies, which I was like, I threw my hands up in the air and I'm like, cool, let's keep this going. So I guess Bettina is going to go in next if she doesn't win. So that's fun. Whatever.
You know that that's the case. The guys don't want to run the final.
And I don't think she picks Big T. I don't think she picks Big T because they're friends. And I think the rookies are going to continue doing this thing of not picking their friends. They're going to shoot for the moon, or at least what they think is the moon. So I think.
Who do you think she'd pick from either of the two other teams?
I think she would probably choose Nani if the Emerald team is if Bettina is the house vote and Emerald is open, she would probably pick Nani. If the Ruby team's the only one left, then she's probably gonna pick Emmy, who's already won 2 eliminations. That would be my guess, just because she wouldn't want to take anybody from her own Sapphire team because she would probably want to come back to her Sapphire team. And then she doesn't want to take on Big T because they're friends. Priscilla didn't take a shot at either Bettina or Big T. They all seem to be very close with each other. So I don't think she would want to take a shot at Big T because I think they're so close with each other. But that's just my guess. If she wants to stay in the game, I think she would probably stand a better shot at Big T because they're both the same like height. They're the same kind of width. I think that they would be a good competition for each other. I just don't think she would do it. Sadly, I don't think. Or maybe Emmy would be the house vote because she seemed to get into a fight with CT at the club, it looked like. So maybe that's a picture open thing, and maybe she takes a shot at Bettina because everybody keeps on underestimating her too. I don't know. I think Bettina's in trouble. Okay, is that what you guys want to do?
We need you. We need you to lose some people. We need you to. There's no like at the moment. It's me and Chantal against you at this point because you are absolutely killing us in this draft. Like we need you to lose.
What
some
if Bettina wins against Nani? That would be crazy. I would throw a party.
I'm fine with it. Michelle out of my podcast, she has Bettina on her team. And she named her team Bettina and Friends because she just thought that Bettina was just not going to do well at all. And so the fact that she's made it past the halfway point, her team, Bettina and Friends, I'm rooting for her to stay in this game just because, like, it's hilarious that, like, it was basically a gag that she named her team after Bettina and that laugh that she had in the first episode. And now she's, like, almost going to be a front runner to the final. Like...
And she's in I mean, if she can survive somehow in that team, she's got so many good competitors around her. Like, she's got a shot at this. Like, it'd be pretty crazy. But, she only needs to survive 1 or 2 rounds. Now, guys, are we convinced at this point that we're going to remain in these teams all the way to the end? Or do we think that there's another twist? I think we spoke about this last week as well. Like, I'm still, like, I am starting to doubt a little bit if they will move back to pairs or if they will go to a single sort of configuration at some other point here. And I've got to say, I'm kind of hoping that we don't at this point. I actually want like there to be a few more champions potentially, and just to see a different sort of makeup towards the end here, towards the finale. I'm actually enjoying what the teams are bringing to the table at the moment. I feel like I'm really big on the duos. I'm big on the single seasons, but I feel like the way that they've done it this season, it has worked. Funny enough, even though we didn't start in the teams from the beginning, I like the amount of people we've got in each team. I like the amount of teams we have, and I think it will make for a very interesting finale. Now, if we do remain in these teams, I think we might not even see a purge because we might end up with teams of 4 going into a finale instead of there's not like how many episodes do we have left? We've just had episode 11. They normally do about 18 episodes.
There's 19, I think.
19?
Yeah, 19. Okay. So yeah, we'll hit the finals at 17, I think.
And we've got teams of 6, 5 and 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we might end up with teams of like 3.
Is that
yeah,
good?
That'd be interesting.
Or Cutthroat, where we have one team of 4, one team of 2, and then
One
a
team
team
of
of
one.
5 just gas out and turn to a team of 3. Like
The team of one CT beats both the other teams and the finale to be like the sole winner or something like that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I didn't really come into this podcast prepared, thinking through the different scenarios of how the team would be able to shape out, sort of going into the finale. But with that many episodes left, if we've got 7 episodes left, then I'm kind of thinking we're probably going to go back into an individual game or something at some point. We'd have to. There's just too many episodes left.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to be doing. Like they obviously went to just having one person being eliminated so they can stretch it out quite a bit. So if they do that, then they can get rid of like 5 more people. I don't know if I'm doing my math right, but I don't know. I don't know what they're planning on doing. I wish that they would tell us, even if they don't tell them in the game, because like I just or tell them in the game and keep this in my ear and not tell us like something. Like I wish that they were armed with what was going on, because I think that that would actually help with the strategy of people in the game and people making moves or willing to make moves, because people don't want to make any moves because they don't know what's actually happening. And yeah, that's interesting maybe the first time around, or for the surprise factor of like, this is what we're doing for that one episode. But if the players knew what was happening, you would see people like, well, you know what? This is going to be my last shot to be able to do this. They would play a little bit stronger instead of a little bit timid. And so I wish that they just were armed with a little bit more information so that they could actually make some strategic moves that could be shocking, because it's like, oh, we know that we're going to be in this together forever for sure. Like, okay, I'm definitely going to make the move to infiltrate, because like this is could be my only shot to be able to get onto the team that I want. So I don't mind it if it's running in teams, but I don't know if I like it when it's unbalanced. Like I didn't like, what was it, Battle of the Seasons? Was that what it was? With Zach's team had 4, but the other teams didn't have 4. Like I didn't like that. So I would want it to be completely balanced if that's the case. And so I don't know how they would make that happen. So
schoolyard pick at the end. You know, you've got 3 extra players on the board. Schoolyard, who do you want? You know, the team that I don't know, like do a challenge, and you know, whoever gets placed first down to the bottom gets a opportunity to choose first and say, I'll pick this person or that person. I don't know. It's got to be a way to do it. Like if they're bringing so many gimmicky twists into it, they might as well do something like a good old-fashioned schoolyard pick at the end, right, Drew? So we can get balanced teams going into the finale. What's your theory in regards to, do you think that we're headed for, you know, with this many episodes left, do you think we're headed back to more of like an individual or a duo? I don't think the duo team thing is going to come back. I think if they break it up, it'll be individual, surely.
Yeah, I think what could play into a factor of like maybe a schoolyard pick is if they had stats from the whole season. Like if this person won this many daily challenges, they get in first place and they can pick whoever they want. It gives a little bit more meat to the actual challenges, so people aren't throwing it possibly like, oh, if I make it to this point, if I win this many, or if I'm really pushing myself, maybe I could pick my team or get the first pick or whatever. I would love it if it was in teams. I want a team final. I think it would be fun in a 3-team final, even though it could be mismatched and it could be pretty much a blowout at that point. But I still would like a team, because I would like more than just 1 or 2 people winning a season at this point. But knowing the challenge and knowing TJ, he always has something up his sleeve. I could see him doing something like, you ran in pairs, you ran in teams, now you're running as individuals, because there's nobody you can trust but yourself, because you're spies and we're running on satellites and picking up soccer balls and calling them bombs or whatever. I would like it if they were in solos. I would like it if it was more of a free agents, where it was like everybody swapped partners at different checkpoints, and then you did some solo missions in there. I think that would be a lot more fun, a lot more fair, to where, okay, you got to this point, did you make the right decisions and who you sent in? Did your strategies pay out? And you have that bit of pairing and also solo kind of missions. I would like that aspect if it were to be solo. I want it to be teams, but if it has to be solo, that's what I would like it to be.
And if it is solo, I will also add that I would like for there to be a male and female winner this season. I don't like it when they just make it one, because again, then we just end up with one champion, and I personally am of the belief that it's just not fair. A lot of the challenges are more sort of like when you're running up a mountain, men in general, unless you're Jenny West, will do better at doing that type of challenges, and I would like it to be balanced where we get one male and one female for the season as well. I know that sort of dips into the prize money and people might not be as happy about that, but that's what I would personally like to see. And this got me thinking of something completely random here as we're sort of closing off the podcast. I don't know if any of you guys saw the interview or the slash recap that Rob has a podcast that with Parvati Shallow quite recently. I sort of had a listen to it, and obviously Parvati's going through, for people who are Survivor fans, she's going through some stuff. They didn't really go into any of that, but it was more about Survivor 41, and the challenge came up in conversation while they were talking to Parvati, and apparently Parvati was approached to be on the challenge this season, I believe. She didn't end up doing it, but she's open to it in the future. So completely random, but I think that could be another person that's up there in aura to like your Natalie Anderson, probably even bigger when it comes to legends. Like, I mean, she is seen by a lot of people as a Mount Rushmore Survivor player. That would be an extremely exciting potential player to see in the future. I know it's completely off topic, but I don't know if any of you guys listened to that podcast at all, or if you heard her talk about that. I was really excited. She said she's not in the right space in her life to do it right now. Obviously, she's got a lot of stuff going on, but she's extremely open to the idea of doing the challenge in the future.
Well, of course, I saw that it was on. I haven't just watched that one yet. I was watching. She had Davey on, and so I was actually really watching Davey right now. And I was like, oh, I have to go back and watch Poverty. So I haven't seen it yet. But that's really awesome. Like, I would love to see her on the show, and that's what I was saying, kind of about like Ed. Like, yeah, Ed was entertaining, but he doesn't bring like that whole strategy side. And so Poverty, if she was just like, good at the athletic stuff, like I wouldn't really care for her as a player, but she uses her feminine wiles and like flirting and all that stuff. And then she's also quite good at challenges. And we know in her personal life, she does a lot of yoga and a lot of mindset training and stuff like that. And so she's really good at focusing and getting things done. And so I want to see her play this game. I want to see if her skills transfer over into the challenge. I think that would be super awesome and fun to see. She's a player that I could always watch come back over and over again just to see how they do, because they're just so well-rounded and so likable at the same time. So I would be all in on that. I would love for her and Michelle to team up together when Michelle comes back, and Michaela, like, and be like a Survivor, all with the real Black Widow brigade coming back in there and taking things down.
Can you imagine Natalie Anderson, Parvati, and Michelle all in the same season? Those three specifically because of what they've achieved in Survivor. It would be a pretty heavy hitter type of season, having all three of those. We've got Sam here saying Parvati Shallow for the Challenge All-Stars. I don't know, like I think the All-Stars would be, unless they make it Reality All-Stars, the Challenge / Reality Showdown All-Stars. I can see that. I'd be all for that. Can you imagine a season with some old school Survivor legends coming back and playing against like Road Rules and, Real World and whoever else you want to throw in there? Big Brother, bring
Janelle. If you want to do a Big Brother legend over there, like Janelle over there, I'll take her,
Yeah, that'd be a pretty cool spin-off.
Yeah, I would like it if she came on as like a battle of the shows. I think I would like to see her have some protection and some some backup with her. So the challenge has done 2002 was Battle of the Seasons with Real World Seasons. 2012 was Battle of the Seasons again with a ton of Real World. So we're coming on that 2022. We haven't gotten that again. You can't really do Battle of the Seasons because Real World doesn't exist anymore. So I think with bringing on Survivor players, Big Brother, and all those other shows, let's have a battle of the shows, have a Survivor team, a Big Brother team, a challenge team, maybe old school and a new school, fresh meat team. Let's bring them all in. And I would love to see what everybody can do from their respective shows when they have a team. They're working with each other on a team, because not gonna lie, if it was just a free-for-all like this season, I could just see easily the players who are on the challenge who have watched Survivor going, oh, I know Parvati, she's a big liar. I've seen her win. I've seen her get to the end. We can't trust anything she says. We're going to take her out now. And it's like, let's have everybody be on a team. Let's get some let's have some padding for these new players that we want to see on the challenge and stuff. So I would love to see her on, but I would like to with conditions of like teams and battle of the shows.
I'm down.
If they ever have a season of game changers, Jay would be the first one on there because he's a game changer. He was the first one to make the jump over to the challenge. And now we're starting to see more and more players sort of making their way over to the show here on the challenge as well. Now, guys, this was a great discussion about this episode. I think it was a very straightforward episode, but there was a lot of talking points that came from it. Is there anything that you guys felt like we missed? I didn't go into the whole Kyle and Amanda conversation. I did relate
the
to
title
Kyle
of the episode.
quite a lot. I know. I related to Kyle quite a lot in that sense because I know as much about babies as he does. And I also thought that they came up with like a bow, nicely and neatly tucked afterwards. And I probably also wouldn't want to be in the delivery room, similar to Kyle, if something like that went down. So I could completely relate to Kyle in that situation. I don't know if there was anything else you guys wanted to discuss as well. But overall, I am excited for the next sort of episode to see what's going to happen there. I think we're probably 1 or 2 episodes away from things getting, and I know we've been saying it the whole season, really juicy, because hopefully at some point the veterans will have to come after each other.
I was going to bring up the mucus plug, so I'm happy that you addressed that. I did think it was a funny moment, though. It was like a character building moment, seeing Amanda and Nani kind of laughing with Kyle about like his like squeamishness about like what's really going to go down in that delivery room. So I thought it was a funny moment. And then the other thing is, though, that I thought was really nice to see was Nani and Ashley having a little bit of a heart-to-heart, and Nani being pretty like honest with Ashley, being like, "Listen, like I'm not sure if I can trust you. Like I'm kind of worried that you would kind of stab me in the back." And I felt that how Ashley handled that was showing that Ashley's had a bit of growth here, and so I really like that. Maybe they can work together. Maybe they're going to be able to work together in the final. It just seems that since Ashley won that particular elimination, that there has been a little bit of a shift in her attitude. And I feel like it's good for Ashley to be making headway a little bit with Nani and maybe coming across in a different light. So I did like seeing that from Ashley and Nani.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good. I think it's good to see, and it was a good moment. Ashley doesn't have much choice this season in any case. As she said, she's got to trust in the veterans. And I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people actually get there. Does Nani and Ashley both get to the finale? Why did we see that scene specifically? As at least one of them you'd think is going to go pretty deep, and it's a character building moment for at least one of the two. And the way that they address that, I've got a feeling that Nani could still be in danger here as an appetizing option for people as we get to the finale, as myself and Drew said earlier in the show. But overall, like I said, I think it was a pretty straightforward episode, but we're continuing to set up here for the finale. We're continuing to set up for the end phase of the game here, which should be exciting as we see veterans kind of having to backstab, kind of having to betray each other going into the final phase of the game here. We're going to go around the table and talk about the things that you guys have got coming up on your channels. Chantal, Reality Realness, what have you been up to over there, and what is in the works over the next week?
I mean, it's still been pretty chill, which I'm really enjoying. Like, I'm kind of deciding, like, ooh, maybe I should pick up a new show, or kind of looking at maybe bringing more content through shorts. And I do have the feature now to do stories on YouTube. So I'm like, oh, how am I going to use this? And so, kind of maybe investigating using those other little elements of each of these platforms. But The Bachelorette just started. So we've been doing a live recap on Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, talking about the most recent season. It's Michelle Young. So far, I think it's a really good season. I think she's a really great Bachelorette. So it's been pretty fun so far to talk about all the silliness that these men are doing to win her heart and her love. Other than that, Wednesday evenings, right after the episode, we usually talk about the challenge. And then Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, we talk about Survivor. And I think it's going to be a regular occurrence that I'll be hanging out with Sarah from Nerdtainment on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, talking about how we're ranking the players of Survivor. So I'll be on Survivor a couple times, and then with you guys on Fridays with the challenge again.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting episode, the next one on Survivor, to see what they're going to be doing, if it's a merge, or it doesn't sound like it might not be a merge. So exciting times ahead. I'm actually enjoying the season a lot more than what I thought I would. I know that there's it's a lot of 50-50 out there for some people, but I do feel like Survivor fans are kind of like Star Wars fans. Like you can never satisfy them. They're always going to be angry at something. So for me personally, as someone that's watching it a bit more casual because I'm not recapping this Survivor season, I'm actually really enjoying it. Drew, on your channel, the Angel Cake channel, what do you have coming up over the next week? And is there anything you want to plug that you've dropped over the last week? Like I forgot to check your channel out last week for the mid-season trailer, which I ended up doing. Is there anything else that you've dropped over the last week that people should be aware of?
So I actually had to take a step back. So I'm not gonna. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I was doing a little bit too much, and I wanted to take a step back. Really take some days off the last week. I came in strong these past 2 days, putting out 3 videos in 2 days. I did just drop the All-Star full trailer breakdown that was just put out. So I went shot for shot in that, and it came out to 20 minutes, just over 20 minutes on a 1.5 minute trailer. So got 30 minutes to kill for 1.5 minutes. There's where you can waste it. But no, I'm still working very hard on content. I have a big project I'm excited to announce and have more content coming out. With All-Stars coming out, I want to take some time to step back and really like check in with myself a little bit. Yeah. But I still have a ton of content coming. I got a lot of stuff coming out, and it'll just be coming out, and I'll be taking breaks when I need to. So I'm baby steps. I'm taking baby steps at this point, but there's not going to be any stoppage in content or anything. I'm still going to overwork myself at times, but I'm going to have fun doing it.
Yeah. And it's so important as well. Like, I mean, we've said it a few times on this podcast before. What you do is so much harder than what we do on this podcast. We come on the podcast, we just have an hour and a half of having fun talking about a show that we love. Very little thought goes into it. We just have fun when we're doing it, right? And in your scenes, I had notes. I didn't even look at my notes this episode. I've gotten to the point where I'm hardly looking at my notes now, and just have fun with it. But it's so much easier to talk on a podcast than what it is to do what you do. I've got a lot of respect for what you do, putting these videos together, having to think way in advance, the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. I don't think people are always aware of that. So it is important that you balance that out with the pace that you can go at. Otherwise you burn out and we don't get any great Angel Cake material for the next year, which we don't want, So whatever pace you're going to go at, I'm sure people will appreciate that. And like I've always said, quality over quantity is so important. So if you need to take the space to do that, I think everybody would be in full support of that, to be honest. And on the Reality Pop channel over here, we'll be back next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the next episode of the challenge. Myself, Chantel, and Drew will be back. And we've also got the Survivor buffs that have dropped their recap of this week already. I believe they dropped it yesterday. So go check that out on the channel for Survivor 41. And those are the 2 main shows that are kind of going on at the moment. I do need to do some Survivor worldwide off-season content at some point. But similar to you, Drew, I took a mental break from it because I was so busy at one stage just doing interview after interview, doing recap after recap. It got pretty intense, especially with a full-time job. This isn't my full-time job, so that gets pretty full on. So taking a break still from that, but we'll be talking soon, Chantel and Drew. We'll be talking about how we're going to do the All-Stars draft picks. I think we'll probably do 2-3 minutes after this live show to talk about that. So hopefully we'll have some news for you guys next week when we do our recap for the challenge on how we'll do the challenge All-Stars and what the format of that is going to be moving forward. Really looking forward to that. But guys, if you're still here in the live, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being as active as always. And we look forward to catching up with you guys next week. Goodbye.